Salam, my friend. I am Baba Karim. For over 25 centuries, the ancient engineers of Persia built fully working zero electricity air conditioning systems that cooled great royal palaces, that kept food fresh for months, and that even made ice in the blistering heat of a desert summer. How did ancient people master the laws of heat itself and literally freeze the desert with no machine at all? Come, sit with me in the shade. Let an old man uncover for you one of the greatest secrets in the whole history of human cleverness. The secret of my ancestors. Let us go back, all the way back, to 500 years before the birth of Christ. The Persian Empire was spreading across vast, unforgiving desert lands. My ancestors were building great cities in places where water was scarce and the summer heat was merciless. And you must understand, in that ancient world, extreme heat was not a mere discomfort, as it is for a man with a machine in his window today. It was a matter of life and death. Fresh food rotted within hours. Open water vanished into the air almost as you watched. And to sit inside an ordinary mud house was to sit inside an oven. To flee the land was not an option. This was home. Picture it truly. A mother trying to keep milk from turning poison in the heat before her children could drink it. A merchant watching a whole cart of fruit rot to ruin in a single afternoon. A sick child, burning with fever, in a house that was itself an oven, with no cool cloth, no cold water, no relief anywhere to be found. This was the daily reality, and the heat took the weak, the very old, the very young, the sick. To master the heat was not a comfort, it was to master life and death itself. So my ancestors did what my people have always done. They did not run from the problem, and they did not simply endure it. They outthought it. They invented two revolutionary marvels of engineering. Marvels that the green energy scientists of today are studying and copying right now in our own time. Let me show you the first. The first line of defense against the brutal heat was a beautiful tower you will see all across my homeland. We call it the Badgir, the wind catcher. Look up at it with me. These are tall, hollow towers, built high above the rooftops of the houses, from thick mud brick. Now, part of their cleverness is simple. Those thick bricks soak up the sun's heat slowly through the day and release it slowly at night, so they never grow too hot. But the true genius of the Badgir is not the brick. It is pure, beautiful physics, the physics of moving air. Here is the secret my ancestors understood. Down at ground level, in the streets, the desert air is heavy with dust and sand and stifling trapped heat. But high up in the sky, above the rooftops, the breezes move faster, and that air is cleaner and cooler. So the mouths of the Badgir were built up high and shaped with great care to catch those higher, cooler breezes and to funnel them straight down the tall shaft of the tower, into the living rooms of the house below. And now watch what happens. Because this is the part that is so clever it feels alive. As that cool, higher air is forced down into the house, it creates a natural pressure, a pushing. And that pressure gently but firmly drives the hot, stale, trapped air that was already inside the house out, up and away through other openings on the far side. Cool, fresh air pulled down in one place, hot, old air pushed out in another. Around and around, all day and all night. A complete and endless loop of natural ventilation, driven by nothing at all but the shape of the tower and the movement of the wind. No fan, no power, no fuel. Just a clever hollow tower and the breath of the sky. But moving the air was only half of the battle. To truly drop the temperature down to the coolness of a refrigerator, my ancestors needed one thing more. They needed water, and for that, they looked not to the sky, but deep beneath the desert floor. Deep beneath the burning sand, my ancestors dug something almost beyond belief. A hidden network of channels carrying cold water across the desert. We call it the Kanat. Come below the ground with me. Far away at the foot of the mountains, there was water underground. Cold, clean meltwater from the snows high above. The problem was how to bring it across dozens of miles of open desert without the sun drinking every drop. So my ancestors dug tunnels by hand over years, over generations. Gently sloping tunnels running for mile after mile deep underground from the mountains all the way to the city. So the burning sun could never touch the water and not a drop was lost to the air. The cold water flowed by gravity alone, downhill, slow and hidden and cool, needing no pump and no engine, only the perfect patient slope they had carved. From the sky, a kanat looks like a long line of wells marching across the empty desert, the only sign of the secret river of cold water flowing beneath. Thousands of these were dug across Persia, and thousands still flow, cold and clear, to this very day. And now watch my ancestors bring their two marvels together, and you will see the whole magic. They connected the wind catcher directly to the kanat. So when the hot, dry desert air was pulled down the tower, it did not simply enter the house. First at the bottom it was made to pass directly over the surface of that cold, flowing kanat water. And when hot, dry air meets cool water, something wonderful happens. The water evaporates into the dry air, and evaporation drinks up heat. It is the very same principle your own refrigerator uses today. As the dry desert air passed over the stream and soaked up its moisture, its temperature plummeted. That newly chilled fresh air then flowed up and out into the living rooms. And so, while it was a lethal 50 degrees in the street above, inside the home the temperature could fall by nearly 30 degrees, cool and fresh and comfortable. All of it driven by nothing but gravity, wind, water, and the laws of nature. If cooling an entire house that way sounds unbelievable to you, my friend, Then hold on, because how they made solid ice in that same desert is more astonishing still. Before I show you the ice, you must understand a secret about the desert that most people never learn. A secret my ancestors built their greatest wonder upon. You think of the desert as only hot, but the desert has two faces. In that dry air with almost no moisture and no clouds, the day is a furnace, but the night is another world entirely. Because the same dryness that lets the sun punish the land by day lets all that heat escape by night. With no clouds to hold it, no blanket of moisture to trap it, the warmth of the day rushes straight up and away into the black emptiness of the sky. And so the desert that touched 50 degrees at noon can fall shockingly cold in the dark before dawn, near to freezing. Most people curse that cold night and pull their blankets tight. But my ancestors saw a gift. They saw that the desert, for free, on every clear night, offered them cold. And they asked the question that changed everything. How do we catch the cold of the night and save it against the heat of the day? From that one question came the greatest marvel of all. Here is the question that stops people in their tracks. How could liquid water possibly turn to ice in a desert that reaches 50 degrees in the day? The answer is a secret hidden in the night sky. Let me show you. The secret rests on a natural wonder the scientists call radiative cooling. In the dry desert, the night sky is perfectly clear and free of clouds. And on such a night, with no blanket of cloud to trap it, the heat held in the ground, and the water does not just cool to match the air. It escapes straight up, radiating away into the cold emptiness of outer space. It flies away into the stars. This causes surfaces on the ground to fall near to freezing, even in a hot desert region, even after a day of terrible heat. My ancestors discovered this, and they built their greatest marvel upon it. They built colossal structures called yakchals, giant ice houses, shielded from the sun by enormous domes of thick mud. On the clear desert nights, water, brought cool through the kanat, was channeled out into long shallow basins, dug in the deep shade of a high wall built to block the day's sun. The water lay there, thin and still, through the cold night. And as the heat radiated up and away into the black sky, thin sheets of ice formed across the surface of those basins before sunrise. Think of the wonder of it. Ice forming in the open air, in the middle of a desert, made by nothing but still water and the cold, clear sky. And before the sun rose to melt it, the workers came in the cold dark and harvested those sheets of ice, and carried them quickly, deep into the great dome, to be kept. And here was the final genius, keeping that ice frozen through a summer of 100 degrees and more. The ice was packed deep down in a great pit dug into the earth, where the ground itself is always cool. It was stored in insulated layers, separated by straw and reeds and goat hair to hold the cold. Above it rose the enormous dome, its walls thick as armor, coated in a special waterproof plaster of clay and lime and ash and egg white and goat hair. And that tall dome was shaped to work. Any heat that crept in would rise up the great cone and slip out through a small hole at its very peak, always drawing the warmth away, always keeping the cold sinking down to the ice below. Thanks to this continuous clever design, the ice stayed frozen all year round. And so, even in the dead heat of July, the Persian people and their kings were enjoying iced drinks, chilled fruits, and frozen desserts in the middle of the desert, something the rest of the world could barely dream of. You may wonder, old man, is this only a beautiful story? Did it truly work? Let me give you the proof, measured in our own time. In our own time, researchers went into the surviving yakchals in the desert region of Yazd and measured the temperature inside them in the height of summer. Outside, the desert burned above 40 degrees, past 100 on your scale, and inside these ancient domes of mud, with no power of any kind, they measured between 5 and 10 degrees. That is between 41 and 50 degrees on your Fahrenheit scale. Stop and consider that. That is colder than most refrigerators humming in kitchens today. A building of mud and egg white and goat hair, thousands of years old, with no electricity at all, kept itself colder than your electric refrigerator in the middle of a desert summer. That is not a legend, my friend. That is measured fact. That is the genius of my ancestors, proven with modern instruments. Now let me tell you what all this cold actually meant in the daily life of my people, for it was so much more than comfort. In a world with no refrigerator, this cold was close to magic, and it touched everything. It kept food from spoiling. Meat and fruit and dairy kept for days instead of rotting in hours. And in a world where every scrap was precious, that meant health and less hunger and less waste. It gave my people their beloved cold drinks and sherbets, sweet cordials of rose water and sour cherry and mint, chilled with desert ice. And it gave us a treat we still adore to this very day, called falude, thin frozen noodles in a sweet cold rose-scented ice, a frozen dessert made in the desert 1,000 years ago. And it brought comfort and medicine to the feverish, the sick, the old, and the young, in a heat that could kill. A whole culture of coolness and sweetness and hospitality grew up around these humble domes of mud. When a Persian offers you a cold sherbet on a burning day, my friend, that kindness is thousands of years deep. The building of ice houses in Persia is written of in texts from 400 years before Christ, and older still. When much of the world lived very simply, my ancestors had already mastered in practice the science of radiation and evaporation and the storing of cold, not in the equations we use now, but perfectly. in mud and water and patient observation across generations. These were the same people who raised the great columns of Persepolis, who ran an empire across 3 continents, who gave the world early ideas of human rights and grand roads and postal systems. The Yakchal and the Badgir are not strange little curiosities. They are pieces of one of the most advanced civilizations of the ancient world, and the knowledge was handed down, grandfather to grandson, mother to daughter, 100 generations, each adding a little, perfecting it. That, my friend, is what tradition truly is. The gathered genius of 100 generations, placed gently into your hands as a gift. Now step back with me and see the whole of it together. Because this is the true genius. Not any single piece, but how they all became one. See now how every part joined into one great machine, powered by nothing but the free gifts of nature. The Kanat brings cold water in secret from the distant mountains, deep beneath the desert, losing not a drop to the sun. That cold water feeds the windcatcher, where the desert breeze passes over it and is chilled by evaporation, and flows cool into the homes, while the hot, stale air is pushed up and out. That same cold water fills the shallow basins in the deep shade of the tall wall. The clear, dry desert night, radiating its heat to the stars, freezes that still water into ice. And the workers carry the ice before the dawn into the great dome, with its walls thick as armor, its magic plaster of egg and ash and goat hair, its tall breathing dome that vents the heat out the very top, its deep cold pit down in the earth lined with straw. Water, earth, wind, and the cold night sky, every free gift of the desert, caught and turned and woven together by human cleverness into one system that cooled whole cities and made ice in a furnace. No electricity, no engine, no fuel, no smoke, nothing burned, nothing harmed for 2,500 years. My friend, if that is not one of the great wonders of all human genius, then I do not know what is. And it was done by my ancestors in the sand, with their own 2 hands and their own bright minds. And here is what stirs this old heart most of all. The world is now coming back to my ancestors' wisdom, right now, in your time. For a while, the world forgot. Electricity came, and the machine we call air conditioning came. And people thought, why bother with clever old towers and domes when a machine can make cold at the push of a button? And so the wind catchers fell silent, and the yakchals crumbled, and the knowledge was nearly lost. But now the world is remembering, and quickly, because we have learned that the machine at the push of a button burns a great deal of fuel, and costs a great deal, and warms the whole earth, even as it cools one small room. And so the cleverest builders alive are looking back at my ancestors with new respect. In great new eco-cities in the hot lands, they are raising wind-catcher towers again, borrowed straight from Yazd, to cool whole modern campuses with no power at all. They study the Yakchal and the Kanat as the very models of what they now call passive cooling and zero energy design. Their computers confirm, again and again, what my ancestors knew in their bones. Today, engineers in North America and Australia are building sustainable towers and modern homes powered by this ancient Persian wisdom. The oldest wisdom, my friend, has become the newest science, and it makes this old heart glad, because it means the wisdom was true, and true things are needed now in our warming world more than ever before. And this is not only an old story to admire, there is wisdom in it you can use in your own home today. My ancestors' great secrets were, at heart, simple ideas, and simple ideas still work. Shade. What the sun cannot touch, it cannot heat. So shade your windows, plant a tree on the sunny side, and cool your home for free. Moving air. Open your home to the cool night and close it against the hot day, and let a breeze cross through as the wind catcher did. Water and evaporation. A small fountain. A bowl of water before a fan. Green plants. All cool the air, as my ancestors' pools and streams did. Thermal mass. Thick walls and the earth itself stay cool. So the coolest room is the one with the thickest walls, or the one below ground. And the greatest lesson of all, work with nature, not against her. My ancestors did not fight the desert with brute force and burning fuel. They studied her, understood her gifts, the cold night, the dry air, the deep earth, the steady wind, and accepted them with cleverness and humility. In our age of too much heat and too much burning, there is no wisdom more precious than that. Let me tell you from my heart why I made this for you. When people hear of my homeland today, too often they hear only troubles on the news, and they forget, or never knew, that this is one of the oldest and greatest civilizations that has ever lived. A people who made ice in the desert when the rest of the world had none, who carried rivers in secret beneath the sand, who cooled whole cities with the wind and the clever shape of a tower, who did, with patience and genius and humility, what we can now barely manage with all our machines and all our burning. I am an old man, and it is my joy to sit with you and pass on the wonders my ancestors left behind. So they are not forgotten, and so you know the truth of my people's genius. These great domes still stand, silent and patient in the desert, waiting for someone to look up and wonder. I hope, my friend, that today I have made you wonder. So now you know how the Persians cooled their homes and made ice in the desert with no electricity at all. The wind catcher that caught the cooler sky, the secret cold river of the Kanat, and the great domes where water froze beneath the desert stars. The genius of an ancient people who beat the sun with cleverness alone. Thank you for sitting with me and for honoring their memory. If your heart was stirred by this today, then stay a while with me. I have many more stories of the old wisdom to share. The gardens my people grew in the sand, the food, the poetry, the ways of a very old and very beautiful world. Tell me in the comments where you are listening from and whether you had ever heard of the Yakchal before today. Would you ever consider cooling your own home this ancient way? I read every message, and each one warms this old heart. Until we meet again, my friend, may you always find shade in the heat and cool water for your thirst. I am Baba Karim. Come and sit with me again.